very fastly approaching, and hopefully everybody is prepared. And if you're not prepared, it's time to get prepared. And the quicker and the earlier you get prepared, the better off that you are. Now, this topic is really a topic throughout the entire year, and for some reason people think whenever people hear, let's say for example Teshuvah. Whenever people hear Teshuvah, where do they think about it? Right before Yom Kippur. That's why I got to fix it up. So I have a good year. People never think of it. Teshuvah is throughout the entire year. If you do something wrong, if you mess up, then that's when you're supposed to do Teshuvah. Don't wait till Yom Kippur. Don't wait till it's too late, and then you can't do Teshuvah. You can't do Teshuvah anymore, or you could do Teshuvah, but you're just pushing it off. So, and like we spoke last week, that when somebody pushes off Teshuvah, if somebody goes and is able to do Teshuvah, but they push it off, they're making their punishment a lot greater, because it shows that they don't really care so much about it. So there is, besides the fact of Teshuvah, there's also an important thing to change. You need to, you never know, maybe it's the guru that wants to listen. I was trying to find a quiet spot that no one bothers it. So.
Also, we kept saying that.
Oh, really?
It wouldn't go away.
So there is.
Sorry.
It's very easy to be distracted. You ever realize, if everyone was listening, we had a fly, just land over here. Because always, when I'm listening to a class, an art class, and everyone's like, the rabbi's like doing something, and everyone's laughing. I'm like, okay, great. Now I don't know what's going on because so if I was listening, there was a fly there, and the whole shoe was. No, it's not your fault. It's a fly, But it's very interesting. Yeah, I know. It's very interesting because human, the ability to concentrate for long periods of time has I think decreased over the period of time. And that's why I think there was a certain program or like social media that came out with like videos only for very few seconds. Vines, right? So vines are only they're only for like 6 or 5 or 6 seconds, 7 seconds. Why? I don't know what there's a back reason, but one of the reasons I'm assuming was that people's attention span is so short that you have 7 seconds to actually entertain it and then they get bored. So like, okay, we'll make videos for 7 seconds, and I'm like, how is it? Well, it shows how advanced we are as a society.
It's also because there's so much studio out there that people need to shorten it.
Right. But it's very interesting. It's very easy to get distracted, and in order to prevent a distraction, one needs to work on their meditative capabilities. For example, meditation means when you're actually able to sit and focus and push everything else away. That, in a sense, is meditating. So you could sit and learn a book, read a book, but you're so engrossed in the book that you don't know about anything else that's coming around you. That is, in a sense, a way of meditation. And hence, really, the real purpose of meditation is really to connect to God. And we should do a class once on meditation. That's a really cool topic. But in any case, going back to what we're speaking about, there is, it's a time for change. Everybody needs to constantly change. Now, when I'm talking about change, I'm talking about, let's say, character traits. Right? People are either born with certain character traits, or they create certain character traits amongst themselves. There are some people that make themselves stingy. Some people make themselves angry. Some people make themselves happy. And it goes the other way around. Some people make themselves very polite and very kind, and it goes vice versa. So the goal is always to make yourself a better person. Now, what people don't realize is that people don't even think about it. If, let's say, someone's an angry person and someone's a stingy person, so he's like, okay, fine, I have to deal with it. I know I have to deal with it. They don't realize that is considered a sin. A person has to do teshuvah. A person actually repent on bad character traits, which is very scary and very to think about it. So there is an idea that I'm sorry, even I can't focus on it because it's such a big fly. It's huge. It's unbelievable. And maybe it's pregnant. So yeah, it went away. See, the second that it gets us to interrupt, then it goes away. Then we're going to start learning again. It's going to come right back again. Okay. What?
You got self-conscious.
Yeah, right.
Pregnant.
Okay. So the idea is that people need to figure out that they need to change. Now, a lot of people say it's a big problem, and we're going to be speaking about B'ezrat Hashem. The goal is after Sukkot sometime to make a whole series about dating and finding the right spouse and how do you find the right spouse. We're going to B'ezrat Hashem we'll do a whole series, and that's the goal. But one of the things I'm reading up upon it now, and one of the things is that people will come to marriage. We'll speak about it more in depth then. But people come to marriage being like, "This is me," You don't like it, leave. I'm not changing. Like a strong, independent woman. I am standing my ground, right? You will walk or you'll follow my path. And that is a very incorrect approach because a person needs to constantly change. You need to constantly grow. If you're not growing, then what are you doing? You're just, you're just hovering, above water. So and many people come also, I was born this way. It doesn't matter, you can change anything. Any character trait that you have, sometimes it's harder and sometimes it's easier, but it can be changed. It can be changed, and we're going to go through different ideas on how to actually change. Now we're going to speak about it in an aspect of sort of a Teshuvah aspect, but it goes across the board on the character traits. It doesn't matter if it's a character deficit or if it's monetary deficit, like you owe somebody money and you're not paying it, or it's something against God, or something against the Torah. It doesn't matter what it is. The same principles apply across the board. So there is. It's very interesting because I was listening to Rabbi Yitzchak Fangel. Whoever understands Hebrew should listen to him. He's an amazing speaker, and from Israel. So he said this very interesting story, and it really brings a point home. When he said there was once a kid, and this kid was, was in his 20s, and he was just wasting his life away. He was not working. He was just like partying and then, sleeping late. And his father just got fed up. He's like, it's enough already. What are you doing with your life? So his father goes to him and says, that's it. Tomorrow, get a job. You got to get a job or you're out of the house. He's like, you're waking up at noon. You're going to sleep at 3 a.m. This is not the way you're supposed to live your life. Get a job or get out. So he goes over to his mother and he says, listen, Mom, what am I supposed to, how am I supposed to, figure the mother is always the softer one. Is always the one that's easier to manipulate, if you want to say that. So he goes to his mother, and his mother says, you're right. He goes to his mother and says, listen, Mom, I'm very tired. How am I supposed to work? I wake up at 12, and she's like, yeah, I know. It's like, life is not so easy for me, and I have to wake up at, I have to, find my friends, and we have always this drama. And she's like, yeah, son, you're right. She's like, what? Take it like this. It's like, you go out, and then when you come home, I'm going to give you like $100, and you go and you give it to Dad and say, here, I worked today, here's my money. Here's the money that I made. So he said, fine. He goes and he parties or whatever he does in the day. He comes home at later in the afternoon. He goes to his mother. Mother cooks, he slips him 100. He goes to Dad. He says, hey, Dad, listen, I had a long day at work today. He puts $100 on the table. This is what I made today. So the father goes over to him and he goes to bam, smacks him in his face. He flies across the room. He's like, what happened? He's like, you liar. Don't lie to me. And he's like, oh man, how did he know? I didn't say anything. And he goes and the next day he goes to his mother. Says, his mother's like, you fool, but you can't. He probably saw you in the streets hanging out. Says, if you go out, at least go out where he can't see you. So he says, okay, fine. Figures something like some corner of a beach or something. He goes and the next day he goes, he hangs out. He comes right before his mother gives him $100, and he goes to Dad. He puts $100 on the table and says, hey, Dad, I worked today, made $100. He starts flinching. And the father looks at him, catches him off guard. On the other side, bam, smacks him across the face. He goes flying again. He's like, don't you ever lie to your father again. And he's like, oh my God, what's going on? How's he, all right, the next day he gets so scared, he gets up and he goes finds a job. And he finds a job, and he works all day, and he makes also $100. He comes home, and after the whole day of work, he puts down $100 on the table and he says, Dad, I worked today, here's $100. The father goes like this, and the guy's like, no, this time I'm saying the truth. This time I really did. I really worked. So the father starts smiling and says, you see the difference is when you work for something, you appreciate it more. Beforehand, you couldn't even go through with your lie. But now that you had to actually work for it, all of a sudden, no, I really did it. When somebody works on themselves to change themselves, it means a lot more to them. If somebody and that's why if you see somebody who actually worked on something, and they really worked on something, they're usually, if let's say there was an anger issue, they're usually less angry than regular people. If they really work on themselves. I'm not talking about people that, sort of work on it every Tuesday, they decide to work on it. But people that really, really worked on themselves, they're so much better than they were before that they're better than the average regular person. Because they appreciate so much what you work for. And that's why it's a lot of people, even families that have a lot of money, they'll tell their kids, no, I want you to work, which is a very good chinuch because you're not going to be able to appreciate money. You're not going to be able to appreciate it. When you work for something, you appreciate it more. The same thing is for character traits. When you have to work and build something, you appreciate it. You appreciate it better. If you were once a very tough person to be around and you worked really hard on liking everybody, you're a jealous person. And then you worked on it, it changes a lot about you, and you hold that very dearly. Now, the Chovot HaLevavot speaks about it, and he says that there are 7 prerequisites to change. There's 7 prerequisites for Teshuvah. Now, one of them, let's go through all 7 of them. So, Baruch Hashem, a lot of concentration today we have. So, there is, number 1 is the person has to know 100% that he did something wrong. If a person doesn't think they did anything wrong, then they won't really change per se. They're not gonna, you know, they're like, all right, it's not so bad, or it's, you know, not as bad as I thought it was. But if a person knows that it's a disgraceful act, then he's gonna do some serious changing, some serious teshuvah. It says in the pasuk in Tehillim, chapter 51, verse 5, it says, Ki pashai ani eda v'chatasi negdi tamid. Ki pashai ani eda. I know my pashai, I know my transgressions. When you know your transgressions, you have a much stronger ability to actually go and do teshuvah. I think this is a thing in, I don't know if it's an AA or something like that, but you have to, one of the first processes is admitting that you have a problem. Is that, I think that's AA. No one has to be like, yeah, it's AA. Be like, well, how do you know? No, but I'm pretty sure it's in one of those programs that the first process is admitting. You admit you have an issue. When a person admits that he did a sin, then you know you're step one for a process for teshuvah. Problem is there are many people, they don't consider it a sin, or whatever. If they live, it's not so bad. Those people are never going to do. They're never going to do teshuvah. The same person as, let's say, he's always drinking, but he doesn't think he has a problem. Will never change. When do you change? Once you realize that you have a problem. So step one for teshuvah, for change, is to realize that you have a problem. This goes again for character traits. If let's say you're an angry person, but you don't think you're an angry person, then you have a very big problem, because then you have a big issue, you think everybody else is crazy, and really you're crazy, and now everybody has to deal with you, and you're never going to change. Number two is that, actually before we go to number two, number one, this comes into effect where there's a lot of people that they do certain things that they don't even think is a problem. An example, let's say for a man, he's supposed to learn Torah, and if he has free time, he has to learn Torah. If he doesn't learn Torah, it's called bitul Torah, and he gets punished for that. You need to sit and learn Torah. But he thinks, okay, what's the big deal? I want to, you know, so I spend one Sunday for like 16 hours playing video games. Well, you know, guys, yeah, I worked very hard. Yeah, I got to chill out. I got to relax. Yeah, they spend the whole time just relaxing with video games, you know, hours and hours on end. So, other very common issues are also, for example, jealousy. Jealousy is something I find it very hard, because there are people, let's say one friend goes to another friend, I'll be like, oh, I just bought this, whatever. And the other friend will be like, oh, wow, you got it? Oh, I'm so jealous. And the other friend feels so good. Yeah, my friend's jealous. Yeah, I feel, you know, I got it. You know, I'm like, what's going on over here? How does this even work? You have somebody who, you know, that you feel good when somebody else is jealous, and they're not even embarrassed that they're jealous. They'll tell you, oh yeah, I'm so jealous. I can't believe they did that. It always bothered me that hearing that, and I'm like, I don't understand why. What does that mean that you're so jealous? That's such a bad thing. It's just like saying, you know, like every time, oh, I'm such a stingy person. Like, why are you announcing your sins and faults to everybody else? Why are you announcing your jealousy to everybody else? People don't think that it's a problem. And people not only don't think it's a problem, in a certain sense, sometimes people take it as a compliment. Oh, I feel good, yeah, she's jealous of, you know, Baruch Hashem, you know, I made it, you know. So, you know, which is, it's very odd. These types of things that the people think that they're not doing anything wrong. If they're not doing anything wrong, then they'll never change. Another thing is hatred. People bear hatred in their heart. So much hatred. You hear what people say about other people. Oh my gosh, you think, you know, like people are good people outside, but inside when they open up, oh, I hate, oh, this person terrible. Whew, you don't even know that person. I'll forget about it. I was speaking to somebody recently. I don't think he said one good thing about anybody. Anybody they spoke about, not one good thing. I'm like, you know, God help him. You know, he doesn't see good in anything. His terrible life. You know, that he's constantly seeing the negative on everything, and then it leads to bearing hatred. People bear hatred. And they think, what's the problem? I didn't do anything to him, so I don't like his face. You know, I don't know. She always dresses better than me, and it drives me crazy. Whatever it is, that it bothers the person inside, and because it bothers the person inside, he thinks he's not having a problem. Where in essence, it's a very big problem. So this is another thing that people don't realize that it's an issue. Another issue is also arrogance. It's a very big issue nowadays, at least from the men's side. People are so arrogant. People have so much pride. People that have nothing also have so much pride, which is very interesting. Sometimes it's even more than the people who have a lot. People that pretend to have a lot have even the most pride, because they feel like they deserve everything. But again, they don't think that it's an issue. Okay, let's move on to number two. The next prerequisite. Let's call it prerequisites for repentance/change. Number two is that a person has to understand the seriousness, the gravity of his either the sin or the character trait. Which means is if it's not clear to him that it's so bad, then it's not going to change. He could know that, okay, I know it's wrong, but you know, whatever. Right? That's how Jewish people sometimes speak. So just by sounding out vowels. So there's you know, if somebody doesn't feel that it's a bad, and if let's say someone sins against God, a person should think that there's nothing worse than not listening to the Creator of the world. And if a person, even if you don't think that it's bad, you're not listening to him. If you're not listening to him, that's a big problem. If you're an angry person, you're not listening to him. Right? It says whoever gets angry is as if he served idols. Now, Number 3 is that he realizes that, or she realizes that there is a punishment awaiting. You ever realize that when do people feel bad about something that they did wrong? Is when they get caught. Like somebody, let's say, is a drug dealer. He is enjoying life. He is living it up. He's doing everything great, and no regrets, nothing. All of a sudden, after 20 years, and he has all this money, all of a sudden he starts feeling, and he gets busted. That's when he's like, oh man, what did I do? What did I, when does that come? When he gets caught. That's when the problems come. However, this is a person should always think that, you're caught already. God sees everything. Bad character traits, bad problems that you cause, sins that you do. Everything that happens, you're already caught. It's it. It's game over already, unless you change. Number 4, a person has to realize that nothing is forgotten. People think, okay, I don't remember it, so how am I supposed to do repentance? That's a problem also when people push off. And people come, how many times I get that people come and they tell me that, what am I supposed to do? You'd be surprised how many times I get it. I've, done insurance scams or something like that. Then when I was younger, I didn't care so much, and I cheated out some companies out of some money. What am I supposed to do now? So whatever, there's a process that a person has to do, but at the end of the day, it's like, why'd you wait so long? Why do you wait so long? You have to realize that if you realize your punishment is pending, it's there. The more you push it off, the greater it gets, but the earlier you get, you'll be able to get rid of it much quicker. Number 5. Number 5 is that you have to know 100%, like not 1,000%, that you can change. You can change. No matter, you can do repentance, you can change. If you don't feel that you can change, you're done. You're over. Yeah, this is what there are certain companies like high-end companies, even if they're hiring people, so especially in the sales department. Sometimes they'll have a criteria. Says you want to work for us, you got to drive like a Mercedes. You got to drive like a high-end car. The guy says, well, I don't really want to spend my money on that. I'm like, well, it's part of the job criteria. You get paid X amount of money. We pay a little extra for this, but you have to drive a nice car. Yeah, that's a thing. So he says, what? I need the job. What am I supposed to do? Okay, fine. Let me take it. Let me do it. And what?
Job is it? Send it over.
Yeah, right. So there are certain and you'll see the reason why. It's actually pretty smart. So they go and they make the people get a nice. Now what happens? This guy was driving an old car, and all of a sudden he gets a nice car. Right? So the first day that he drives it, he's like, his wife is like, what's up with this? We're trying to pay your tuition, so we're trying to do this. All of a sudden you're buying this expensive. He's like, no, it's not for me. I didn't want to buy it. I really don't want it, but I need the job. And this is what this is the whole thing that I could offer. So the first time that you sit in the car, let's say it's a Mercedes, you're sitting in there. All of a sudden you feel a little better. It's like, yeah, I'm driving a Mercedes. Even though it's a lease and it's not even yours and the company's paying for part of it, whatever it is, you feel a little better about it. You park it in your driveway, and you walk past by, you be like, yeah, it's my Mercedes. Well, what's this junk car? Get that car away. It's going to be next to my Mercedes. All of a sudden, your ego gets a little, boosted up. And that's why, if you ever realize that rental companies in the olden days used to have stickers of the rental company on their car. Nowadays, they don't have it anymore. They don't have it anymore because it's not a rental. Come on, a rental. People like to feel like, this is mine. Even though I rented it for 1 day or 6 hours, I want to feel like it's mine. And that's why you usually don't see Avis or Hertz on the cars plastered anymore. Where I remember a few years ago, that's how it used to be. So this guy drives a Mercedes. Within a week, he is already like, his ego went like, his self-esteem went up. What are you talking about? I drive a Mercedes. He drives in it the first time, be like, oh, I deserve this. This is what do you mean? This is it. And all of a sudden, his self-esteem is up, which means why did the company do that? Because now he was over here, self-esteem is up there. It's going to be much easier for him to sell something. Slaps his keys on the table and be like, yeah, twirls it in the thing. What was that? Yeah, there's a great purchase. He's able to do a lot more because the self-esteem is higher. So what changed? His belief in himself all of a sudden just went up. When you believe in yourself, when you believe that you can change, you can actually change it. The worst thing that you can do is thinking that you can't change. You cannot repent. And there are many people that say, listen, I've done so many sins, it's done. It's over. I don't know how many times, that I've heard, and I wish I could make this up that it wasn't a lot, but it's constantly like, Rabbi, I'm going to hell, so what's the difference? Just let's go with it, And be like, first of all, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry for telling you that, but that's really stupid. It's like somebody who got a scratch on his hand and be like, well, this hand is done. You got a saw? What am I supposed to do with blood everywhere over here? Like, what does one thing have to do with another? Why, if you're already going to hell, so why would you dig yourself even a deeper hole? But the bigger issue is that you think so. You can't change. Everybody could do a teshuvah. You could change your character trait. You could change it. You could change your past. You can change anything. But number one thing is you have to realize that you can't do it. If you don't realize you can't do it, you're not going to do it. Number 6. Number 6 is a person, what helps also is a person realize how much good God has given that person. God has given good to everybody. Right? If you can't see it, that means you have to look inside about why you can't see any good. Because God is giving good to everybody. And the problem is most people can't see it sometimes because they're too self-involved in all the bad that is happening in their life. And number 7, the final one, is a person has to realize and has to pick up the strength that he has in order to overcome the suffering that he is going to have to do. Because now, if somebody is used to a sin or is used to a certain character trait, it's hard to overcome it. It's not so simple to overcome it. So if a person has to go and overcome it, he has to go through some suffering. And he has to go through, so when he's doing the teshuvah, he's doing the repentance, he has to realize, I'm ready to go through with this. I'm ready to do it. Somebody who gets off of drugs, right? Someone who's an addict and gets off drugs, he has to go through some suffering. And that's why they usually have rehab, right? For detox. Detox is very painful. A person has to realize if a person is going to change, it's going to be difficult for some times. And a person has to be able to go through with that. Okay, there is... Okay, so let's move on. Any questions on those? Those are the 7 prerequisites that the Chavot HaLevavot bring on for teshuvah, and you could also bring it on to change as well.
I'm so sorry. What was 6 and 7?
Number 7 is that you will be able to bear the suffering, which means is the suffering that you have to, it's hard for you to stop doing what you're doing or to start doing what you didn't do. And number 6 is to always do a spiritual accounting of how much good God has done for you. Now, it says that the Rambam in Hilchot Teshuvah speaks about it. It says that each person has a scale, right? On one side he has merits, on one side he has sins. If the sins exceeds the merits, then he is signed immediately for death, right? And if his merits exceeds his sins, then he's signed immediately for life. And I heard an interesting understanding that. What does that mean? You see many sinners that they live out their life, and you see many righteous people that they die out. And I heard a very interesting interpretation that you look at these people, it's not specifically talking about if you're going to live or die per se. In essence it is. But per se, it's talking about how you live life. There are many people that are alive, but they're dead inside. They're dead. And I know actually quite a few of these types of people. They're done. And some of them just want to end it. They don't want. Some of them don't. And some of them just are going through so much whatever that it's done. Their life is over. That's a person that didn't actually go and live through life. He doesn't. But then you have somebody else who is going through, a lot of troubles also. But he's living life. It doesn't matter. He's still happy. He's still able to push through. So the difference. There's living life, and there's living life. You can live life and be alive, and you can live life and be dead inside. There's also something very interesting and this is such an important idea in Judaism is it says that you have the book of death and the book of life open in front of you, in front of God, right? And God judges for the dead and for the living. Now the obvious question, I think we spoke about this briefly at once, is all right. We know about the people that are alive. That's why they have to get judged, and that's why they have to But what are the people that are dead? People that are dead. What are they? Somebody can be dead 1,000 years. He's still getting judged, or she's still getting judged, which makes you wonder what's going on. Why is a person getting judged again if he's dead? So the answer is that when you do something, there's always a ripple effect. I think the term is butterfly effect, if I'm not mistaken, which means is if you do one action, it results in so many other actions. If you do another action, it results in so many other actions. Now, if you do one action and it's a mitzvah, and because of that, you have now another few hundred people did a mitzvot or whatever that, you get reward for that. And this could be even if you're not alive anymore. You could have been, not you, somebody could have been dead already for 100 years, but he's still getting reward. You look at, let's say, for the Rambam, for example, or the Chafetz Chaim, where you have certain people that they wrote Sfarim, and it's in every single house, constantly being read. Every time you read the Rambam, every time you read the Chafetz Chaim, it goes reward to him. It goes reward. He put it in, which is unbelievable. I heard because the Chafetz Chaim's Yortzai was recently. I heard that there is a certain Chassidut. I forgot which one it is that they require that like part of their curriculum is 1 hour a day learn Mishnah Berurah, which is what the Chafetz Chaim wrote. Which means is. And they're all over the world. Which means is at any given 24-hour period, there's most likely somebody learning Mishnah Berurah throughout the entire day, throughout the entire year, which is ridiculous if you think about the amount of, the amount. So people are able to earn literally endless reward. And they're also able to earn endless punishment. If a person goes and decides to introduce a cult, and because of that the cult goes off, Messianic cult, let's say, or even now, let's say you talk about JC, right? Whether he started or for generations and generations, constantly, so many people are sinning, and it's all going to that person. That's why the dead are also getting judged. The dead are also getting judged. So if you're smart, this is why a lot of people, they're smart, they look at it, what do they go into? They go into kiruv. Why do they go into kiruv? Because this is the biggest money-making business, not money as in dollar signs, but in the next world money-making business. It's going to bring you the biggest reward. Why? Because if you help one person come bring back Teshuvah, then that person goes and now he's religious or she's religious. Now they're going to have children. They're going to be religious. And it goes for generations to generations to come. So it spreads like wildfire. This is also why, with social media, it's so easy now. You send one shiur to, let's say, a group, and let's say, you have 100 people in the group, so let's say 20 people watch it, or listen to it, or hear it, all your reward. Right? There are many people that they vote. I was actually speaking to somebody not too long ago. What does he do? He learns for a few hours a day, and the rest of the day he does kiruv on all these social media things. And he works with different rabbis, and he does this, he donates his time, constantly just, helping spread the Torah, which is unbelievable. He's getting an unbelievable amount of reward. He's capitalizing it, very smart. So now, there is, okay. There's also something very important, and I want to go through a few more points on the Rambam's Teshuvah, and then we're going to go into the character traits. The Rambam says that let's say somebody goes and he regrets all the good that he did. He was living life the way of the Torah, and then what happens is, let's say he's 50 years old. He decides he's going to learn all day. He's going to learn all day, and for 30 years, 40 years, he's sitting and learning all day. And meanwhile, his friends from high school, he meets up with them, and he sees this guy, doesn't keep Torah, doesn't keep Shomel Torah mitzvot, and he's a nice, bald, shiny head, but his wife is a 20-year-old model, and he's sitting there driving all these sports cars, constantly going on vacation. And he's thinking, this is my friend. He wanted to go into business with me. He says, imagine I would have gone to business with him. He says, why did I waste all my years learning Torah? Why did I waste all that time? Imagine I could have done that. If the person goes and regrets all the good that he has done, or she has done, you lose it. It's done. You lost it. Everything. To a certain extent.
Does it have to be like you have to say it? Or
if it's a fleeting thought never counts as a thought. Even if, let's say somebody goes and somebody's collecting charity, and you're thinking, they tell you a really sad story, and then you're like, oh my God, I want to give $1,000 in your mind. And then, he's going around collecting closer and closer, and you're like, what am I, crazy? $1,000? This guy doesn't deserve $1,000. $500 is enough. Right? And then he's still collecting. He didn't get up to you and be like, if I didn't have $500 when I gave him a check, a credit card, maybe you know what? $100. That's going to be good. And it's constantly going through your mind, a fleeting thought, and by the time he comes to you, give him $1. Right? And then you get upset that he didn't say thank you. Right? And then, but that's not a problem. When is it a problem? Is the problem because it's constantly fleeting thoughts. Okay, give him 5,000. You have 500, 100. You keep on changing in your mind. It's not considered like you already, made a decision. When is it considered made a decision? If you made a decision in your mind, or you said it out loud, which means is you're like, no, okay, I'm 100% going to give him $5. That's what and you're focusing. Not like you're bouncing back and forth. There's sometimes that fleeting thoughts come through a person's mind, and And some people are a little psychotic, and there's some crazy thoughts. And some people are normal and have psychotic thoughts sometimes, which is not out of the ordinary. People get really scared, be like, I don't know why I have these weird thoughts. Just come to it and I push it away. I don't know what's going on. I see a knife and I just want to I don't know, I have to put it off. I don't know what's going on. People tell me very interesting things. So, but the idea is it's fleeting thoughts. Fleeting thoughts don't necessarily count in this matter. It only counts when you make a decision, when you decide it.
So make a decision and then in turn have an action coming from that decision.
For this one,
action.
You don't have to. In this thing, you could just have 100% regret. I'm talking about 100% regret. That's enough. You don't have to have an action.
How do you know if it's 100%? If it's in your mind, you're like, oh, I should have just become like them, and you're thinking it, and so how do you know if that's.
If it's it's like if you would do it over again, you would do it completely different. You wouldn't even go into that, and you wouldn't. You're filled with regret, as if you're doing Teshuvah on the mitzvot that you did, the opposite, right? So if a person goes and regrets, let's say this is a good example. There are people that go to Israel, let's say for 2 years or 3 years, especially the boys, to learn, and then they're thinking, what did I waste of time? I could have been halfway through college. And they really regret it. Be like, I can't believe I was an idiot. Why did I go and waste time learning Torah? I could have done all this thing. They lose their reward, which is how does it work that way? Because it works the same way with Teshuvah. If you think about it, Teshuvah is you did a sin, you'd be like, oh my God, I feel so bad, I regret about it. So it erases. It's an equal world. It's equal balance. So there's also something very interesting. This is the part I want to focus on. The Rambam says that a person should always look at himself as he's 50-50. You're 50-50, and if you do a mitzvah, you're going to be a righteous. If you do averah, you're going to do a wicked. So, example, you're unlike you have mitzvot and you have sins. By the way, this is not by quantity; it's by quality. of the mitzvot and the sins. For example, is a person could have, a person could done, many sins, but then one great mitzvah, and that will outweigh all the other sins. A person could have done many mitzvot, but then mass murder. So obviously, it's like it's gonna balance out not by quota 1 for 1, but in terms of weight and how much it's worth. Now, if a person should always look at this, is such an important. This will help you in life so much if you are able to internalize this. You always think of yourself as 50-50, which means is you do one thing, you make one bracha, that's it, you're already a tzaddik. You miss the bracha, that's it, you're a rasha. Every single option is just like that, and more than that, the Rambam goes. He says the entire world is 50-50. And everything boils down to your next action. What are you going to do? Because the world is also judged in that way. If you do something good, the entire world all of a sudden gets into merits. It's decreed for a good year. If you do something bad, the entire world is going to do that. Now, I want to explain that. I want to share with you, first of all, very interesting. I saw Chacham Ovadia Yosef. I saw a video clip recently of him when he was younger, and he was saying over this. He was speaking over about this, and so he said, there was once somebody who came over to a rabbi, and he tells Rabbi, he says, Rabbi, tell me, he says, am I tzaddik or rasha? Am I righteous or wicked? So the rabbi says, you're 50-50. Go do one thing, and then you'll be a tzaddik. So the guy says, really, one thing? That's all I have to do, and I'll be a tzaddik? So he says, one thing, and you'll be a tzaddik. So the guy says, okay. He goes. He takes a Gemara, he goes to the Bet Midrash, and he starts opening up and he starts learning. For 1 hour straight, non-stop, he's like sweating with the learning. He finishes, he doesn't even an hour, crazy. Closes the Gemara, runs back to the tzaddik. He says, tzaddik, chacham. He says, tell me. He says, I just learned for 1 hour. Tell me. So now I'm a tzaddik, right? So the rabbi says, to be honest, no, now you're 50-50. Before, I can't tell you, you're a little bit below. But now that you learned, you're 50. Do one more thing, and then you're a tzaddik. He says, just one more. The guy says, yeah, one more thing. So the guy runs, he's thinking what he's going to do. He runs to the nearest hospital. He goes to the hospital. For 1 hour, he's running and helping patients. He's making them, giving massages. He's like doing everything. Like he's sweating. His bones are aching. He's like, all right, it's an hour. Let me run back to the tzaddik. He runs back to the tzaddik and he tells the tzaddik, okay, listen. He says, I just spent an hour on doing, chole rofim, matir asurim. I done everything in the hospital. Who knows what I was, but poker rivrim. I gave surgery. Who knows what I did? So he goes and he says, so now I'm a tzaddik, right? So the righteous says, to be honest, no, but now you're righteous. Now you're really righteous. Now, before I wasn't able to, how do you tell somebody? Now you're 50-50. Just do one more thing, you're righteous. The rabbi said, come on, you told me that already. No, now for real. Now just one thing and you're already righteous. So it's fine. He runs home. He does, his parents are old. They keep on screaming at him. He goes in. He takes all the screaming. He's helping them for an hour. He's like, oh, what a day. But at least now I'm a tzaddik. He runs over back to the chacham and tzaddik, and he says, Rabbi, so now I'm a tzaddik, right? So the rabbi says, no, you're still 50-50. And he says a person should always think of themselves that they're 50-50. Even if they go and they do something good, you're still the 50-50 state. Because if you think of that life, that you're always going to be 50-50, then you'll be able to go and you'll be able to do one little thing. It's very easy if you know one thing is worth so much. If you know this little next thing is going to be worth so much, you're going to have the ability. I'll give an example for the guys, and I'll give an example for the girls. Let's say for the guy, a guy is walking out in the street, and he knows, I have to watch my eyes. I have to go and watch my eyes. But it's so difficult. But if he knows, all he has to do, consider righteous, is from where he's going now to his destination, he watches his eyes and he's good. And then he knows that he's a tzaddik. It'll be much easier to accomplish. Let's say a girl, I don't know, she wants to, she has two options. She wants to say Tehillim, or she wants to go and watch a movie. And she's really struggling. But if she thinks, she's like, right now I'm 50-50. If I watch the movie, I'm going to go down. If I say Tehillim, I'm going to be a righteous. So it's much easier to push yourself, to change yourself, when you're at the 50-50 state. Says the Rambam, a person should always think of himself as 50-50. Now, I want to explain, what does that mean? I said that, the whole world, consider you are like 50-50, and your actions is based on the whole world. Which means is whatever you do is going to be the resulting action of the entire world. Now listen to me for the next few minutes. You have to I'll make it short, but you have to stay with me for a little bit. There is in Bereshit. It says in chapter 1, verse 26. It says, "Vayomer Elokim na'aseh Adam." God said, "Let us make man." And the obvious question that everyone asks is, what does it mean, us? It should have said, and Moshe asked this. Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, "E'aseh Adam." He says, why did you write? God said, "Let us make man." When Moshe was writing his Torah, he says, this is going to cause people to think there's more than one God. What's let's? Let us. What's let us? It should be, I'm going to make man. What is Na'aseh Adam? Says you got the question? Clear? Says the Arizal. Arizal said, he says, no. He says, God wanted the entire creation, all of the universe, to participate, to donate a piece of themselves into creating man. Which means that man has a piece of everything, and we could see that inside. How does man have a piece of angels, for example? A man has a piece of angels because he has knowledge, more like angels. Animals don't have knowledge. Plants, we have the ability of knowledge. We have the ability to go above and beyond what other creations do not. What do we have creation of God? There's one thing that humans and God, well, there's many, but I'm saying that share in common that nothing else, not even angels share, and that is free will. We're the only creation that has free will, and God is also the only one that has free will. That in a sense, I know we can't, whatever. But so we are, in a sense, have everything in the whole entire creation is in us. The whole entire creation. This is why, if you realize, there's a pasuk in Bereshit, chapter 1, verse 31. It says, "Vayar Elokim et kol asher asa, v'hinei tov me'od." He says, and God saw all, after the creation, after he finished the creation, he looks at everything, and he says, you know what? I see it's very good. Tov me'od. The obvious question is, what's the me'od? What's the extra part of the me'od? It could have just been tov. Everything I see is really good. Why does it have to be tov me'od? Very good. If you read Hebrew, you take the word me'od, and you scramble the letters, it says Adam. It says the whole point of creation was for a human being. It says, you know why this thing is Tov Me'od? Because it's Me'od, it's Adam. The whole purpose of creation, the whole purpose of the whole world, the whole universe is for you, for a human being. You're a human being. You're created the entire world. The whole world is in you. You do a mitzvah, you fix the whole world, in a sense. You give a tikkun. Because everything is that. That's why, if you realize in Rosh Hashanah, when we pray, we say, all the angels are nervous and screaming, oh, Hine Yom Adin, the day of judgment is coming. Why is everyone screaming? What are the angels? What do the angels get upon? And the answer is because the angels gave a part of them to you. And they get rewarded and punished based on your judgment and punishment. Says the Shvilei Pinchas, he explains it, and he says, a person you have the entire creation of the world. Entire creation is in you. When you do something good, the whole world benefits. When you do something bad, the whole world, suffers because of it. This is now we can go back and we can understand what we said before, that if you're in 50-50, and if you do something good, the whole world, now it makes a lot of perfect sense. It says, because you are the world, you are the creation. The whole purpose of the world is for you. Now, there is, yes?
So, according to what you said, we were created from the whole world, right? Like a piece of the world,
yes.
Right? Is kind of, but then there is that thing called Nivra B'Shvili.
Yeah.
So, if we are the world, then how is everything created for us?
It works perfect. B'Shvili Nivra Olam means that it's for me because I am the world. Because that's exactly it. Because you are the world, and that's why the world was created for you. Because the whole purpose is for you. Which just brings the point even stronger. And if a person thinks about that, they realize that their consequences to their actions are very, very, heavy. It's not just like, oh, let's wing it, whatever. I'll live life. I'll see how it is. Okay? Usually people that wing it usually don't have the happiest of lives. No, not always. So there is, okay. So let's move on. It's getting late, and I actually, oh no, we have a little more time. Okay, not that long. Okay. So now. There is, where are we? Finish this. Okay. There is something that I wanted to speak about. Okay. All right. So here's an interesting question, and it affects the, Baal Teshuvah. I ask it all the time. What do you think is greater, a Baal Teshuvah or a tzaddik? Which means who is greater? Somebody who never sinned before, or somebody who sinned and done Teshuvah? So, there is I believe it's a Gemara. It says, "B'makom sheba'alei teshuvah omdim ein tzadikim gmurim omdim." Right, which means is in a place where Baal Teshuvah stand, righteous people don't stand. But says the Chavot al-Avot, he clarifies it. What do you mean? So you have here a righteous person, righteous from birth, non-stop, does everything in the top line. Then you have somebody else who done the worst sins and then does Teshuvah, and he's even higher than somebody who worked so hard on himself. So it depends. And we're going to explain that. This is a very important, a lot of people ask this question, so it's always good to know the answer to it. The Chavot al-Avot explains that. It says there's three categories. There's a category where the Baal Teshuvah is greater. There's a category where they're equal, and there's a category where the tzaddik is greater. Now, when is the Baal Teshuvah? Let's start again. When are they equal? They're equal if, let's say, the sinner, what did he sin in? He sinned in not doing something, he was supposed to do a positive commandment, and he didn't do the positive commandment. Because of that, he sinned. That's considered a sin. Let's say he was supposed to put on tefillin, he didn't put on tefillin, and then he goes and repents. When he repents and he does a full repentance, he is considered as if he's never sinned before. He's on the same level as a righteous person. They're equal in that sense. However, let's say somebody sinned and they sinned in a negative commandment, not a karet, not something that's chayiv mitah, but something that's just a negative commandment that's not the severe negative commandment. So for this person, what happens is he goes and he feels so bad that he did something against God, like bad, a negative command, that he's constantly doing teshuvah, and he's constantly living his life with this humility, the fear is always the sin is always over him, and he's constantly doing teshuvah in it, and he's constantly has this humility in it. This person is considered greater than a tzaddik. Why is this person considered greater than a tzaddik? Because this person is not going to get. There's sometimes people do so many mitzvot, and they get I'm a righteous person. Who needs a blessing? I love it. People come, and they give you the hands to kiss afterwards also. But why are you such a righteous person all of a sudden? The answer, listen, we're learning all day. It's a lot. People get the mitzvot sometimes get into a person's head, but somebody who has a sin in his past, the mitzvot are not going to get into his head. Which means is he's going to always serve God out of humility. He's not going to have that proud, that ego, that he's a righteous person, and hence his service is going to be a much higher. That type of Baal Teshuvah is considered higher than a righteous person. When is a righteous person higher than a Baal Teshuvah? Is when the Baal Teshuvah, let's say, did a serious sin. Karet, Chai Mita, all the serious sins, and then he does Teshuvah, a righteous person says the Chol V'Avot Avot, that never sinned, is considered a higher level than him. Very good. People ask all the time, so now you know how to answer it. There is it's very interesting when you think about, like when people go and they change and they want to become better, and it's like people are like yo-yos. You realize? And they say, I read the story in Rabbi Perquisites' book on stories. He brings it from Rabbi Shushan, and he writes it down, his story. And he says there was once a guy that in Israel he used to collect money. He used to collect money for charity from place to place, and one day, word got out that this guy collected a lot of money. He had a lot of money, and he kept on. The word got out to not the best of people. So they got their group together, this gang, and they said, "Listen, we're going to barge into the rabbi's house, and we're going to take the money." So they burst in late one night, and they find the rabbi in the room, studying, and they bring him down to the floor, and they say, "Where's the money?" And the rabbi says, I don't have any money. He says, no, we know you collect money for and he collected money for orphans and for widows to give them money for Shabbat and Yom Tov. So he says, we know you did it, you better do it. You better tell us where the money is. And the rabbi says, no, it's not my money to give you. And they say, look, Rabbi, we're not playing any games. They came in with masks and armed, and they said, they warned him. And the rabbi says, not going to happen. So they start beating him. They start kicking him and punching him, and pushing him on the floor. And the guy goes down and he says, tell us what it is. You're crazy. Why are you not telling us? So the rabbi says, you're not getting anything from me. So the guy whips out a switchblade, and he stabs the rabbi in the stomach. And he tells the rabbi, says, you are going to die right here if you don't tell us. Don't be a fool, don't be a hero, and not tell us. And the wife is sitting there in the corner screaming, just tell them where the money is, tell them where the money is. So the rabbi goes and he says, I can't tell them where the money is, it's not my money. He says, not my money. So the guy with the knife goes over to him and says, you fool, rabbi. He says, we're going to kill you right over here, tell us where the money is. So the rabbi takes his shirt, moves his tzitzit, and he says, go ahead, kill me. He says, if you want to kill me, kill me. He says, this is not my money. Why? If I'm going to give you this money, what are the orphans and the widows going to have for Shabbat and Yom Tov? And suddenly, this guy this story happened in Israel. This guy who was holding the knife, he dropped the knife and he started shaking, and you see he was like struggling something with his head. And the other guys behind him were like, just finish him already. We already did too much damage. You got to finish it. Finish the job. So the guy turns around, the guy with that stabbed the rabbi, and says, what are you, crazy? He says, the guy's at tzaddik. And he starts, he's like, how do I, and he's like literally going crazy. And the guys are like, well, our partner just like, when they just jumped out the window and they ran away. And this guy is like, he's like, no, what am I supposed to do? And he picks up the rabbi, he runs him to the getaway car, puts him in the car, takes off his T-Max and starts zooming to the hospital. And he's running, and he's rabbi's like, how I never met someone so righteous as you. And he starts crying the entire ride. This robber, he's crying the entire ride. He's like, I can't believe. He says, I've never met someone like you. He zooms into the hospital. He takes the rabbi out, and he runs with a bloody rabbi, the rabbi bleeding out of his stomach, into the hospital. Says, this guy's dying right now. They put him on the thing and they start wheeling him. As they're wheeling him, the guy goes with the rabbi, bloodshot eyes, constantly, crying nonstop. And he holds the rabbi's hand. And he says, Rabbi, I beg of you, please forgive me. Please, I'm begging you. I did not know you were such a. I did not know there were people like you existed. I'm begging you, please exist me. Please forgive me. So the rabbi looks at him and says, I see that you're doing teshuvah on what you did. You really feel bad about it. He says, don't worry about it. Everything's forgiven. And the robber ran, never to be seen again. This, in a sense, you think, well, this guy's crazy. He's a flip-flopper. He stabs the guy, then he cries to him, brings him, what's going on? But in essence, we're just like that. We're just like that. We do a problem, then we go to God. I'm sorry, God, for all these sins that I did. And then tomorrow you do the same thing. You're flip-flopping back and forth. And yet it's still considered good. Can you imagine that? And just like the rabbi, God says, forgiven. Machalach, machalach, machalach. You're done. Don't worry about it. You're good. If you ever realize that it's a crazy situation that we have. It's an unbelievable ability that we have, and people don't capitalize that. People don't realize that we have the ability to change. You're struggling through something in your character traits. You have an anger. You can change. Do it. You have the ability to do it. You have the ability to change. You have the ability to flip-flop as much as you want, but flip to the right side. There are many. Okay. Well, a few minutes we'll be done. There are many things that it's a little difficult to actually do teshuvah on, and it's actually difficult to change. When is it difficult to change? Sometimes it becomes a habit. Things that become habitual is very, very difficult to actually change because you're used to it, and if you're used to it, it's tough. It's tough to change when you're used to something. That is why, if you ever realize, older singles that they're older and they're not married yet, it's more difficult for them to get married because they're set in their ways. They're set living in a certain life. If a person gets married young, they sort of they grow together. But if they get, their 40s or their 50s, it's very difficult for them to work together because they're used to their own private life. And once you get used to something, it's very, very difficult to change. So what do you do if, let's say, you're in that situation? If you're in that situation, says the Chavot al-Vavot, it doesn't matter. You could still do it. If you show God you're really sincere about changing, even though you think it's impossible, it's not going to happen. If you're really sincere about it, you start the process, you're going to see a lot of siyata d'shmaya. God is going to help you a lot. You're going to be able to accomplish everything. You're going to be able to accomplish. You don't have let's say a good shalom bayit. You're not working well with your spouse. You have the ability to do that, to change. You show God that you are trying a little bit, God's going to take you the rest of the way. God's going to take you the rest of the way. God's going to help you in that. That's also an unbelievable. Yet I don't think people realize how awesome the Torah and God is. I don't think people realize how amazing it is that you could go against him, and not only is he not upset, the second that you just start being it, he'll help you out. Be like, oh no, it's okay, don't worry about it. I just want you to, I'll help you out. I'll help you whatever it is that you need. All you got to do is just take the first few steps. There is also a lot of times that people, when they sin against other people, their ego gets in the way, and they don't really try to resolve it. They push it off, and then they forget about it. And there are many people that they harbor these feelings for many years to come. They harbor these thoughts and and you really, let's say, messed up, and you really should have asked for apology, but you didn't because whatever, it was difficult for you, and you thought, okay, whatever, it's so long ago, you forgot about it. But that person might have not forgotten about it. That person might still be harboring those thoughts. And there are many people that I've spoken to that for years they're not religious. Why? They're blaming their rabbi. Usually they blame something. Not that they have a right usually to, but at the same time, if somebody did something wrong and they're justified for feeling that way, you have to go, and you did something wrong, you have to go and ask for mechila. The best character trait to have is that second that you mess up, you ask forgiveness right away. Like make it like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. There are many times that you hang around let's say group of people. I know it's specifically with guys. Guys' humor sometimes is by putting other people down. And people don't realize that some people will be like, oh, whatever, we're joking around, having a few beers, doesn't matter. But some people it does matter. And when you're making jokes and for the other person, you're hurting the other person's feeling. For you, it might not matter, but for other guy, that guy does matter. I have guys, let's say, in my house over Friday night. Every week we have a shul Friday night. So, but in this beer and this, people get a little bit, loose, and sometimes they slip a little comment. I'm like, I'll usually stop and be like, no, you have to ask for mechila. If it's not going to be an embarrassing situation, be like, you don't want it. Tomorrow you're going to forget about it. Doesn't mean the other guy's going to forget about it. Someone makes a comment about this. Someone makes a comment about someone's weight. Someone makes a comment about this, about a smell, something like that. These things affect people, and people don't realize that. People push it off and then they forget about it. The best thing to have is you mess up, fix it right then and there. Don't wait till for a different time. Sometimes you wait and it's too late. There's a very interesting story that I read, that there was once a guy by the name of Yosef. And Yosef went through the Holocaust. Yosef, he actually lost his entire family in the Holocaust, all except for his son Shimon. His son Shimon was, I think was 10 years old at the time, and they stayed together through the Holocaust through the most part of it. And this is something that he was able to hold on and be like, you know what? I got my son, and the son says, I got my dad. Without that, we'll be okay. We'll survive it through. And this is what the bond that helped them, go through their difficult times. Now, he goes, and years go by, and they're still in the Holocaust. And then suddenly one day, the SS guards, separate the two. He says, "All right, the little one, he's coming with us." And the father's like, "No, please, you can't. This is the only family I have left. I'm begging you, please, whatever you do, don't take him away from me. He's everything I got. He's everything." And of course, the Nazis couldn't care less. And they said, they pushed him on the floor, and it says, "Enough with you. We're taking your son." And they took his son, and he took this very badly. He lost his wife, he lost his other children, he lost his but he had one thing that he had left holding so cherished so dearly, and it hurt him too much, and he couldn't overgo it. The war ended shortly afterwards, and he started searching frantically for his son. He heard that his son's transport, everybody in that transport, died. And he didn't believe it at first, but he went high and low searching for everything, and he didn't find anything. He didn't find, all the remnants of his son were gone. He couldn't trace him back. And he came to the conclusion that, his son, passed away, and in the Holocaust. And he had a very hard time, dealing with that. He's like, "God, you took away everything from me." And he says, "You know what? You took away my son, take away my Judaism as well." And with that, he left, and he decided he's leaving. Judaism is not for him. As many people unfortunately did in the Holocaust, they couldn't deal with it, and they left religion behind. And he went on to South America, and he worked as an apprentice at a diamond dealer, and he started, making his name known over there. And eventually, he was able to open up his own place, and his name from Yosef went to Joe, and he became extremely, extremely successful. Successful beyond his wildest dreams. And he went, and he, shortly after that, he lived a completely secular lifestyle. He met a non-Jewish woman, and he settled with her, and they had a child. And many years go by, about 60 years go by. 60 years go by, and he gets a business proposition. He's in his, well on in his years, and he gets a business proposition in Israel. And he's like, "Listen, it's like Israel, So he's like, what? Something piqued his curiosity, the old religion that he used to have. He says, let me take it. And he goes and travels down to Israel, and he goes and he deals with the business that he deals with, and then he goes to his there's a Holocaust museum called the Yad Vashem in Israel. So he says, "You know what? I'm ready here. Let me see what's let me go visit." And the second he walks into the Yad Vashem, he sees all the pictures, all the memories flood back to him. And he never even realized that they have a computer over there, a computer that he could search for all the people that passed away. So he goes over to the computer and he starts searching his wife's name, and his first wife, and he sees all of a sudden he starts searching his children one by one, and all of a sudden he gets overwhelmed with emotion. Tears start streaming down his face, and then he's like, and he's going through his sons, and then he checks his last son, Yosef, and he checks Yosef, and he says the last name over there, and nothing's coming up. So he's like, something must be wrong. So he searches again, and he said, and nothing's coming up. So he says there was another search that you could do for people that are alive. So he's like, is it possible? Shaking, he runs over to the other computer and he starts searching in the alive one, and he sees that there's a Yosef. There's a Shimon, same last name as him, that's living in Tel Aviv now, that went through the Holocaust. And he's like, "What is it?" He quickly gets the phone number, and they arrange a meeting. And it turns out, so this Shimon goes over to Yosef, and they meet in the hotel room. And it turns out he sees his son after 60 years. His son survived the war. His son survived the entire war. The second that they see each other, they embrace each other, and they cry, for hours. They're sitting and they're reminiscing in the park. And Shimon the son took a little bit of a different turn than his father. He went to Tel Aviv, and he ended up sticking strong to religion. And he built a strong religious home. And he's looking at, his father's looking at his son. And he says, he's like, what a terrible mistake I made in my whole life. He says, "I only left religion because I thought my son was not here anymore, and all that since he was alive and safe." And then he starts rethinking about I have a non-Jewish son. I'm living a non-secular life, and it starts really bothering him. And so he says, the only thing that he could do with this, he's well on his ears. He says, he's going to come clean to his wife in South America. So he flies back, and he says, "Listen, I guys need to tell you something." He says, "I'm Jewish, and I have a Jewish son." And he says, "I'm going to rewrite my will. It's half going to go to my my other son. His name was John, and the other half is going to go to Shimon, my Jewish son." So they rewrite the will. They keep up over the phone, the son and the father, for a few weeks, and then shortly after the meeting, a few weeks after he met his son after 60 years, he returned his soul to his maker. The father left this world, and the lawyer calls the son and says, "Listen, you have to come down. You have the lawyer, the paperwork, the inheritance, and your father's funeral." And he says, "Yeah, I'm coming right down." He flies right down to South America, and his half brother John picks him up from the airport. And they're talking, and they say, "Listen, Dad left $30 million, and we're splitting in half and half. It's $50 million for me, $50 million for you." And they were talking about other things, and he says, "John," the son says, "Don't worry about it. I got the funeral. Everything is taken care of. It'll be in a few days." So Shimon is like, "What, a few days? Because the law, according to the Judaism, is that you got to bury right away." He says, "What a few days? What are we waiting for? Let's get the funeral fast. Yeah, you have to bury him as fast as possible." He says, "No, listen." He says, "The church was booked." He says, "We couldn't get a priest until recently." And the guy's like going crazy. "A priest? My father's Jewish." He's like, "What do you mean you're getting a priest and putting him in a church?" And he says, "Listen, whether your father, Dad was, Jewish per se, but he lived a non-Jewish life, and this is how he wanted. This is how he lived his life. This is how he's going to be buried." He says, "So he says, what are you, crazy?" He says, "No, we can't do that." And the guy says, "Listen, you just walked into our lives now." He says, "It's been 60 years. It's just been me and our father. We're taking care of it, and this is how it's going to be." This guy Shimon is saying, "What am I going to do?" It's like he's like, so he starts calling. He calls lawyers. He's like, "What am I? I can't do it." He calls Israel. Israel sets him up with a law firm in South America, and he brings his half brother to court. And the judge over there, the non-Jewish judge, what is he going to be like? Okay, yeah, he's really Jewish, and he doesn't know the thing. He says, "Listen, I understand." So he says, now John gives him another shot. He says, "Listen," he says, "Dad's going to get cremated," and the guy screams, "Cremated? Are you kidding me?" And the judge says, "What's the problem?" He says, "You take half the ashes, bury it in the Christian cemetery. You take half the ashes, bury it in the Jewish cemetery. What's the problem?" So the Shimon is going crazy. He's like, "This man survived the fires in Auschwitz just to be cremated by his son?" He's like, "How is that possible?" And then he goes and he says, "No, there can't be." And he goes to the half brother and says, "John, please, I'm begging of you, please let me do it." And he says, "What are you kidding me? Yeah, it's going to be my way. This is the way that he lived. This way that he's going to die." So he says, John is about to walk out of the courtroom. So Shimon says, $5 million. So the guy turns around and he says, "What do you mean $5 million?" So I'll give you $5 million if you let me bury Dad in a Jewish cemetery. And he says, he walks up to him, John, and says, "You think you're going to buy me out now? You think you're going to buy me out? You humiliated me by bringing me to court about my father's funeral. You think I'm going to sell it out for $5 million?" He's like, "Have a good day. I'll see you at the funeral." He turns around. He's about to open the door. The Shimon screams out, $15 million. Have it all. Take it all. Just give me my father. He freezes for a second, John. He turns around and he says, "You mean that?" He says, "Take all my inheritance. Just give me my father." He says, "Don't bury him. Don't bury him. Don't cremate him. Don't bury him in a Christian cemetery." And he's like, put your words, put it on document. He says, "No problem. I'll sign wherever you want." The lawyers were all in here. Write it up right now. They write it up. They sign it. He says, "Give him all my inheritance." He takes his father. He brings him to Israel and he buries him in Israel in the Jewish cemetery. They went over to him afterwards, asked him, and said, "Listen, it's not like you have so much money. You're learning in Israel." He says, $15 million. It could have set you for life. You, your children. He says, "How do you do that? How do you give up everything for your father?" So he said, it was very simple. He says, "I was never able to do kibbutz avim to my father. In my whole life, I was never able to do it. I had one chance to do it. If I had one chance, then no matter the price, it didn't matter to me. I was going to do it. I was going to go whatever it takes so I could do kibbutz avim, so I could honor my father, and it was worth the $50 million, and I don't regret it one bit." Everybody has the ability to do good. Everybody has the ability to change, no matter how tough it is. But the most of all is you have a Father in heaven. You have a Father in heaven that you're able to do good for it. You don't have to spend $15 million. You could do a little bit. You don't have to give up your entire inheritance like Yosef did, like Shimon did, I'm sorry. You have the ability to do it. You have the ability to change. You have the ability to accomplish so much. And it's a waste. It's a shame not to go and capitalize on your opportunities that you have. You have so much that you could do. You can change yourself for the better. You can change yourself to become more spiritual. You can change everything. Everything is possible, only you have to believe in yourself. And if you believe in yourself, you will be able to actually accomplish everything. Any questions? No questions? Nothing. Never any questions here. Okay. That's good also. Anyway, okay. Bezat Hashem, everybody should have an amazing judgment, an amazing year, and an unbelievable. Whoever needs a shidduch should get a shidduch, and whoever needs a refuah should get a refuah, and whoever needs shalom bayit should get shalom bayit, and whoever needs panasah should get panasah, berevach, beshefa. And we should all have an unbelievable, entire class should have an unbelievable, amazing, amazing year.